Hey, my spookies, before we get to tonight's show, I just want to say a humongous thank you to everybody who has been checking in on my dog Chicano as he battles with cancer, and it is going well, and it really looks like we are going to win this battle. He's doing very well. He has 2 more treatments left, and I just want to say thank you. We've raised $3,731 to pay for his treatment, but that's about half of what it'll cost. So if you want to help us in a direct way, please go to weeklyspooky.com and click on Help My Dog. I really, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate it. But now, it's time for the show, my friends. It's a dark night. You look off in the distance and you see something furry and tall. Something on 2 hind legs. And now, it's looking right at you. You escape and survive, but now the question becomes, what was that? Or who was that? And is anyone truly safe?
What you are about to hear is believed to be real. Based on witness accounts, testimonies, and public record. This is terrifying and true.
Here at Terrifying and True, we often take you across the globe and through time. But this story lands a little closer to home. We're headed back to the 1970s, when my home state of Ohio, in the town of Defiance, just 2 hours away, was in the grip of a reported werewolf. That's right, a lycanthrope running loose in Ohio is tonight's story. And we're going to get to that after these quick words from our sponsors. But please remember, if you enjoy what we do here, make sure you're subscribed on your favorite podcasting app and leave us a 5-star rating if you don't mind. And now, after these words, the Werewolf of Defiance, Ohio. The engrossing legend of the werewolf has been around for centuries across the globe. It's widely believed that they are men with the ability or compulsion to transform into wolves, defying all the laws of nature. Man and wolf have long been enemies and total opposites, the essentially rational man and the inherently evil wolf. So, when the two are combined, it creates a symbolic creature with the intelligence of a man and the barbarity of the wolf. The official term for this is lycanthropy. Lycans are said to have the strength to easily tear a human, limb from limb, and the speed of some kind of superhuman creature, so fast that it would be nearly impossible to perceive their movements with the naked eye. They are essentially thought to be the apex predators of the night that stop at nothing to shed blood and fill their stomachs. The legend can be traced all the way back to early Greek mythology, meaning they were likely more prevalent than the mythical lore behind the closely related phenomenon of vampirism. While werewolves have been made popular through literature and in movies, there have been many sightings over the centuries, and not just in certain areas, but all over the world, making you wonder if there is any truth behind hybrid monsters that many just refer to as simply pure fantasy. According to the people of Defiance, Ohio, it's no mystery. After accounts of seeing a half-man, half-beast surfaced in the summer of 1972, the residents of Defiance grew terrified they would encounter the creature. And reasonably so, the number of accounts even, amazingly, prompted a police investigation. To add to this, Ohio itself has a long history of being known for having werewolf sightings, and of course, creepy folklore. Just a few include the notorious Bigfoot and its many variations, the winged creature called the Mothman, the Loveland Frogman, and so many, many more whispered about at campsites and sleepovers. So it's no wonder that Defiance, Ohio was struck with fear when the police were searching for the beast-like creature so many residents had reported seeing. The first sighting of the Werewolf of Defiance was on July 25, 1972. Ted Davis, a railroad worker, was on the Norfolk Western train lines that day. As he was working just like any other day, he noticed something very strange from the corner of his eye, and when he lifted his head, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. It was an 8-foot-tall beast, covered in hair from head to toe. The creature was hunched over and was, oddly, carrying a large wooden board. Some reports state that Ted claimed the werewolf-like figure showed its sharpened fangs. Ted didn't even have a second to react when the enormous beast struck him in his side with the board. Ted fell over, and when he picked himself back up, the beast had fled into the woods. He later reported that the attack was completely out of the blue. He filed a police report about the attack. However, the police did not take him seriously. Ted also told a few coworkers and buddies about his terrifying encounter, but none of them believed him either, and they all just laughed it off. A few days later, though, Ted and his coworker Tom Jones were back out around the same area in Defiance, working. Without warning, the creature returned to the railroad tracks, and this time Tom was there to witness the creature's appearance as well. Thankfully, they were at a safe enough distance that the beast couldn't see them staring at it. The large and hairy but strangely humanoid creature was prowling through the bushes, seemingly looking for something. Suddenly, it jumped as if it was startled, and then quickly fled out of the men's sight. After this, Ted knew he needed to report this second sighting to the police as well, hoping they would warn local residents of the potential danger. And now, his coworker Tom had also witnessed it and could back up his account. When the two men spoke to the police, they surprisingly took them seriously this time, and even agreed to begin an investigation into the weird animals. The chief of police, Donald Breckler, said during an interview with the media, quote, "We don't know what to think. We didn't release it to the news media when we first got the report about a week ago, but now we're taking it seriously. We're concerned about the safety of our people." Not long after this, a third sighting occurred, and it didn't come from Ted this time, but from a grocery store employee who had just ended his shift. He was driving late at night after leaving the store when he spotted what he described as a dog-like creature just off the side of the road. He said it was impossibly large, standing over 7 feet tall, and it matched the descriptions police had reported. Not long after, a fourth sighting came from a motorist who said it ran in front of their bike at around 4 a.m. in the morning. They were close to hitting the beastly figure, but it quickly fled into the woods. Now, the town of Defiance, Ohio, was panicking. As the stories spread through several newspapers and media, many in the area refused to leave their homes at night. Overall, everyone who spotted the beast described it as being anywhere from 7 to 9 feet tall, overly hairy, and humanoid in some ways. In each encounter, it was hunched over and gave a deep, threatening stare. Many more reports of potential sightings came flooding in over the next few weeks to police, and the level of hysteria was rising in the town of Defiance. Residents weren't staying out late at night. Some didn't allow their children outside without adult supervision, and some were even boarding up their windows. Others took an interest in it and wanted to stay out late, just to spot the mysterious large wolfman. Many Defiance residents believed the werewolf was not an animal at all, but rather a person. In one sighting, someone reported the creature was even wearing jeans, and many found it strange that instead of using its strength, large claws, and piercing fangs to attack Ted, it used a 2x4 and then quickly ran away, leaving Ted more traumatized than injured. But if it was just a rather large man, what was his motive? This is what puzzled the authorities. The person hadn't robbed anyone, and for most of the sightings, it seemed startled by people and ran away from them. The residents that lived in the neighborhood along the Norfolk Western Railway thought the thing was just a mentally disturbed person running loose in Defiance. Others openly talked about if they found out who or what it was, they would kill it themselves. But no violence ever occurred in relation to the mysterious beast of the night, and all of the reports slowly trickled down to none as the fall of 1972 approached. And although there have been many other Ohio werewolf sightings, there aren't any other reported cases of anything strange in Defiance in all the years since. Was it truly a bloodthirsty hybrid, or was the thing holding the wooden board just a nocturnal, crazed man out of his mind, determined to terrify an entire town? In the end, the Werewolf of Defiance was not the first or last sightings of werewolves in Ohio history. In the spring of 1950, there wasn't a sighting as much as a discovery. In Eagle Creek, Ohio, archaeologists unearthed the remains of an Adena man whose front teeth were apparently removed. Found beside the man's skeletal remains was a portion of a wolf's jaw, and the piece fit perfectly into the space where the prehistoric man's missing teeth were supposed to be. Could this have been some kind of ancient Adena religious ceremony? Or a man-turned-creature? In the 1980s, a family of 3 moved into a new home in London, Ohio. The home was in a wooded area, and the mother and her 4-year-old daughter were often left alone at night as the father attended night school. One night, the mother heard noises outside of the home, but when she investigated, she couldn't find anything out of the ordinary. Then, as she was washing dishes in front of her darkened window, she looked up, and her eyes met with another pair of eyes outside. She initially thought it must have been a stray dog, but when she saw the eyes again, they were at her eye level. When she told her husband of the odd and terrifying sighting, he did his best to investigate, but ultimately found nothing. The mother continued to see menacing eyes outside of her window many more times after that. While these are just 2 more eerie accounts from the Buckeye State, Ohio's history is littered with werewolf tales, the Werewolf of Defiance being the most notorious. And even if you don't believe these stories, the legend of werewolves dates back thousands of years. Many people legitimately hunt for Bigfoot with all sorts of varied equipment. So, who's to say lycanthropy is so out of the question? If you ask the residents of Defiance, Ohio, they'll tell you all about the fear that reigned over the town in that summer of 1972. For those who aren't familiar with the state of Ohio, I was born here, and I decided to establish my business and myself here after a little bit of time away. The people of Ohio are varied. Very, very varied. We have Amish, we have inner cities, we have just about every type of person you could imagine. And frankly, I don't find us to be that deeply superstitious per se, although there are a few haunting stories that definitely play up our day-to-day lives, especially as a child telling stories at campfires and sleepovers. But that being said, this story is very interesting in that the police took it seriously. It was in newspapers that there was a werewolf potentially loose in Defiance, and when you combine with that the fact that the natural world is full of wonder, it's full of confusing truths, and, of course, mystery, it does make you consider what really happened. Was it some crazy person? Or was it just mistaking natural phenomena for something supernatural? We may never know in this very specific case, but I am left very curious by the Native American man found with a pair of wolf dentures. Tells me that there's definitely a lot of history we may not truly know. But what do you think? Are there giant wolves or giant wolf men out there somewhere? If there are, I just hope they leave my backyard alone. Terrifying and True is narrated by Enrique Couto. It's executive produced by Rob Fields, produced by Daniel Wilder, with original theme music by Ray Mattis. If you have a story you'd like us to cover on the program, send us an email at weeklyspooky@gmail.com. And if you want to support us in a very direct way, go to weeklyspooky.com and click on Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can support us and allow us to keep the spooky rolling and rolling and rolling. And I want to say a big thank you to our Patreon podcast boosters, folks who pay just a little bit more to hear their names on the show. And they are Bobbletopia, Megan Hua, Julia Kirsch, Christopher Sullivan, Brent McCullough, Gino Lyons, Steve King, Karen Weemet, Jack Kerr, and Craig Cohen. Thank you all so very much, and we'll see you next Monday.